Tunguska? It's a name that conjures up images of snow-covered forests and frozen tundras. But for one brief moment, over 100 years ago, it was the epicenter of the most powerful explosion in recorded human history. For thousands of years, nomadic reindeer herders had tracked the herds across its endless snows. A massive black rock had fallen from the sky, so big that it smashed through the ice beneath the river and sank in the mud at the bottom. But the story stayed with him. Every night he saw the faces of his dead friends staring at him from the darkness. They whispered of revenge and retribution. Then he heard a noise. It could have been a natural barrier, except every tree beyond it was flattened. There were no animals, no birdsong, just a complete absence of life. The blast had wiped it all out. Even more astonishing was the fact that no one had died. All of the nearby settlements had been evacuated because of the war. But if people had been there, they would have been vaporized. At first, he thought it was his own mind playing tricks on him. It triggered a series of volcanic eruptions in the region, releasing vast amounts of ash and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Others saw it as a harbinger of doom, a warning of things to come. It fed into Cold War paranoia and conspiracy theories. Some believe that the government covered up the event to avoid mass panic. Others claim that the explosion was the result of secret military experiments. This led to a cooling effect that lasted 4 years. But it also inspired stories and legends that persist to this day. It has been immortalized in paintings, sculptures, and songs. It has become a symbol of humanity. Awe and terror in the face of nature. Awesome power. The heat from the explosion must have melted all the topsoil, turning the forest floor into glass. But we can marvel at the mystery and wonder at the power of the event. It's a reminder that our planet is constantly changing, and that we are just visitors here. But where did the rock come from? Could it have been an extraterrestrial visitor? Most believe that a meteor airburst caused the devastation. But that doesn't explain how large the meteor was or why it exploded before making impact. The trees have grown back, and the locals have moved on. But if you listen carefully, you might hear the whisper of the wind through the birches, or perhaps you'll see a flash of light in the corner of your eye. Keep walking, and you'll eventually find the stones of Tunguska, standing silent and stark against the horizon. And if you're very lucky, you might even see a reindeer herder kneeling in prayer, asking the gods for forgiveness for what happened here all those years ago. The reindeer herders returned to the area and built their camps on the blast zone. Their dogs still refused to enter the circle of dead trees. For them, something evil lurked in the silence. Eventually, the forest began to grow back, but it never reclaimed the area of dead trees. They became known as the Stones of Tunguska, standing in silent testament to the power of the explosion. What we do know is that the force of the explosion was over 1,000 times greater than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima. The energy released was equivalent to 12 megatons of TNT. If the meteor had hit the Earth, instead of exploding, it would have left a crater over 1/2 mile wide and 200 feet deep. But there's no evidence of that happening. One scientist argued that a meteorite must have crashed into the Earth. But this didn't explain why there was no impact crater, or why the rocks were found miles away from the epicenter. Another suggested that perhaps it was a comet, but there were no icicles or fragments left behind, only dust. But the sound grew louder. It was the rumble of a train, except it wasn't coming from the tracks. It was coming from inside the Earth. The ground vibrated with such force that it shook the house to its foundations, and when the dust settled, they found the rock. But no permanent settlement stood here until Russian explorers staked their claim to this savage land. Many never made it home. The winter was harsh and unforgiving. Food supplies dwindled and men turned on one another. Only a few would survive the ordeal. The year was 1908. The place was remote, so remote that it took over a decade for word of this cataclysm to reach the outside world. In the days before satellites and GPS, Siberia was as empty and unknown as the moon. Among them was an engineer named Sergei, who returned to civilization with a tale so outlandish that no one believed him. Part 2. The uninvited guest news of the rock spread like wildfire. Scientists from all over Russia flocked to the site, trampling the sacred burial grounds in their haste to get there. Among them was a geologist named Gregory, who was shocked by what he found. The rock was gone. The crater had filled with water and was teeming with fish. But something else caught his eye. The trees were dead, millions of them, and they hadn't been burnt or chopped down. They'd exploded outwards, tearing away from their roots and leaving behind an eerie silence. He followed the path of destruction, passing through a wall of granite so thick that it stopped a man in his tracks. Then the scientists realized the true scale of the disaster. Part 3. The legacy of silenced Tunguska is a mystery that has baffled scientists for generations. As the dust from Tunguska began to settle, the world went back to normal. Yet the catastrophe was so great that it changed the world in ways both big and small. For some, the Tunguska Event was proof of a cosmic curse, a punishment sent from the gods. But there is beauty in the mystery. The Tunguska Event has captured the imagination of artists, writers, and filmmakers. Part 4. The Sky That Fell. We'll never know exactly what happened at Tunguska. The evidence is long gone, lost to time and erosion. If you want to visit the site of the Tunguska explosion today, you won't find much evidence of it. Now check out The Day the World Turned to Glass, or click this other video instead. The wind whispered through the birch trees, gentle and hushed like an old lullaby. In the stillness of Siberia's morning, the forest felt eternal. To this day, it remains the largest explosion in recorded history. This is the story of what happened to the sky. It was an extraordinary sight. Many villagers reported seeing a bright white light erupt in the sky. Others described a fiery rock that split the heavens. But amid the devastation, some things remained untouched. Houses on the outskirts of town were left unscathed. Livestock grazing in the fields were unharmed. But as centuries passed and theories multiplied, the true nature of the Tunguska event remained elusive. Was it a meteorite? A comet? A military weapon? A clash of extraterrestrial visitors? Proponents of this theory pointed to the eyewitness accounts of a blinding flash and an eerie silence that descended upon the forest in the aftermath. Could this be evidence of an extraterrestrial visitor bearing gifts of unimaginable power and destruction? Eyewitnesses passed away, taking their stories with them to the grave. Some believed that the explosion was a warning, a celestial message to humanity that we should heed if we are to survive the future. Others saw it as a testament to the awesome power of the universe, reminding us of our place in the grand scheme of things. Proponents of this theory pointed to the fact that no impact crater was ever discovered, suggesting that the meteor may have disintegrated in the atmosphere. However, this raised more questions than it answered. People from all walks of life became enamored with the tale of Tunguska, each convinced that they had uncovered the truth. Artists and writers wove the event into their works, creating haunting tales of cosmic horror and human resilience. In fact, it only grew stronger, drawing in new believers and skeptics alike. And so the debate continues to this day, fueled by the human desire to understand the unknown and the enduring power of a good mystery. Filmmakers brought the story to the silver screen, capturing the awe and terror of a world forever changed by an extraterrestrial encounter. Or perhaps the ambiguity is what makes the story so compelling, allowing each of us to fill in the blanks with our own beliefs and imagination. Maybe the Tunguska event was a message from a world beyond our own. A world that has been watching us for centuries, waiting for us to catch up to them. But until that day comes, the mystery of Tunguska will continue to captivate our imaginations and drive our quests for knowledge. For in the end, it is our insatiable curiosity that makes us truly human. And it is that same curiosity that will lead us to the stars. After all, isn't the allure of the cosmos that it is limitless, unknowable, and eternally fascinating? Who knows what other secrets the cosmos holds? What other wonders and mysteries await us in the great expanse beyond our world? Perhaps the Tunguska event was just the tip of the iceberg, a mere glimpse into a reality that we can only begin to imagine. And isn't that what makes the Tunguska event one of the greatest mysteries of our time? If the meteor was made of stone, why didn't it leave behind a dusting of rock and dust over the surrounding areas? The people of the region clung tightly to their beliefs, fearing that revealing the truth would bring about another apocalypse. And so the mystery of the Tunguska event became a local legend, passed down through generations of Siberian mystics and storytellers. And if it was composed of ice, why did it explode with such force? And the once vibrant community of survivors scattered to the winds, leaving behind a legacy of fear and uncertainty. Supporters of this view argued that a comet made of ice and dust could explain the lack of a crater and the absence of any solid debris. Furthermore, they pointed to the fact that Tunguska lies within the path of a periodic comet known as Comet C1490Y1, which has an orbital period of approximately 750 years. But this theory also had its shortcomings. If the comet had fragmented upon impact, shouldn't more fragments have been found? And would it have caused such localized damage without leaving any trace of its presence elsewhere? Each explanation held some appeal, yet none could fully account for the scale and scope of the devastation. And in the epicenter of the destruction, a single log cabin stood defiantly intact. They combed through the wreckage, hoping to find clues that could shed light on the cause of the blast. They analyzed the soil, the vegetation, and the trees, looking for evidence that could point to a natural or man-made origin. But the deeper they delved into the mystery, the more baffling it became. Others suggested a comet, noting the unusual atmospheric disturbances reported in the weeks prior. But if a comet had fragmented, wouldn't more fragments have been found? And where were the craters? It seemed almost as if the destruction had been surgical, precise and terrifying, and all who witnessed it heard a sound that defied description. Like the roar of a cannon or the crash of thunder, how could a building withstand an explosion of such force that it leveled an entire village just meters away? And what was the significance of the fact that it remained standing while everything else was destroyed? Some said it was the voice of the sky god Tonraki, warning his people of a terrible fate. They heeded the message and fled into the wilderness, leaving their homes and belongings behind. No rumble of train engines, no clatter of horse hooves, just silent. Reindeer herders tended their flocks. Iwenki shamans prepared for a winter that promised to be long and harsh. The Tungus people fished for salmon and celebrated the birth of children with the shamanic ceremony of Wu Daken, meaning calling the soul. Their lives were hard, their traditions ancient, their connection to the land sacred. For thousands of years, they'd lived alongside the mighty Lena River, finding sustenance and solace in its waters. A reindeer herder named Vasily knelt in prayer beside his campfire. Smoke curled upward into the pale blue sky. He prayed not out of duty, but dread. Something had shifted in the woods. Birds had vanished overnight, and the dogs refused to eat. The air was too quiet. As he rose to gather water from the river, a pressure rolled across the earth. Subtle, like the warning of a distant drumbeat. He froze, and then the sky screamed. A light, brighter than the sun, colder than the moon, tore across the heavens. The trees erupted. Fire without flame, sound without echo. Vasily fell to the ground, clutching his ears. The world was ending, or beginning. The explosion came from above, not below, and nothing was ever the same again. On June 30th, 1908, a cosmic event of unimaginable force flattened over 80 million trees over an area roughly the size of Connecticut. It began like any ordinary summer in Tunguska, a remote region in Siberia, Russia. Then one evening, as the sky blazed with the colors of the noonday sun, the tranquility of Tunguska was shattered. When the dust settled and they dared to return, they found their villages obliterated, their possessions vaporized, and a vast swath of the forest leveled to the ground. News of the cataclysm spread like wildfire. Scientists and adventurers from around the world descended upon Tunguska, eager to uncover the cause of this mysterious disaster. Some argued that a meteorite must have struck the Earth, citing the absence of craters and the strange markings on some of the trees. Then there were those who proposed the unthinkable, that the Tunguska event was the result of a nuclear explosion, a harbinger of the atomic age yet to come. But perhaps the most intriguing aspect of the Tunguska event is the cabin that survived the apocalypse. As time went on, the details of the disaster became blurred, lost in the mists of memory and myth. Yet the mystery of the Tunguska event continued to captivate the imaginations of scientists and dreamers alike. In the years that followed, explorers and researchers braved the harsh terrain and unforgiving climate of Siberia in search of answers. One theory that emerged was that the Tunguska event was caused by a meteor that exploded before making contact with the Earth. Another theory posited that the explosion was the result of a comet crashing into the Earth. So the mystery deepened, and with it, the intrigue. But amidst the chaos of theories and speculation, the true story of Tunguska remained shrouded in secrecy. But even as the years turned into decades, and the decades into centuries, the allure of Tunguska never faded. Until one day, perhaps not too far from now, the truth will be revealed, and the mystery of Tunguska finally laid to rest. Because whether we believe in comets or conspiracies, one thing is certain. The sky that fell in Tunguska forever changed the way we look up at the stars. And so the search for answers continues, driven by the relentless spirit of human curiosity. And as we continue to explore the depths of space, we may find that we are not alone in this universe. So keep looking up, because who knows what wonders await us in the boundless expanse of the cosmos. Tunguska, it's a name that conjures up images of snow-covered forests and frozen tundras. But for one brief moment, over 100 years ago, it was the epicenter of the most powerful explosion in recorded human history. For thousands of years, nomadic reindeer herders had tracked the herds across its endless snows. A massive black rock had fallen from the sky, so big that it smashed through the ice beneath the river and sank in the mud at the bottom. But the story stayed with him. Every night he saw the faces of his dead friends staring at him from the darkness. They whispered of revenge and retribution. Then he heard a noise. It could have been a natural barrier, except every tree beyond it was flattened. There were no animals, no birdsong, just a complete absence of life. The blast had wiped it all out. Even more astonishing was the fact that no one had died. All of the nearby settlements had been evacuated because of the war. But if people had been there, they would have been vaporized. At first, he thought it was his own mind playing tricks on him. It triggered a series of volcanic eruptions in the region, releasing vast amounts of ash and carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. Others saw it as a harbinger of doom, a warning of things to come. It fed into Cold War paranoia and conspiracy theories. Some believe that the government covered up the event to avoid mass panic. Others claim that the explosion was the result of secret military experiments. This led to a cooling effect that lasted 4 years. But it also inspired stories and legends that persist to this day. It has been immortalized in paintings, sculptures, and songs. It has become a symbol of humanity. Awe and terror in the face of nature. Awesome power. The heat from the explosion must have melted all the topsoil, turning the forest floor into glass. But we can marvel at the mystery and wonder at the power of the event. It's a reminder that our planet is constantly changing, and that we are just visitors here. But where did the rock come from? Could it have been an extraterrestrial visitor? Most believe that a meteor airburst caused the devastation. But that doesn't explain how large the meteor was or why it exploded before making impact. The trees have grown back and the locals have moved on. But if you listen carefully, you might hear the whisper of the wind through the birches, or perhaps you'll see a flash of light in the corner of your eye. Keep walking and you'll eventually find the stones of Tunguska, standing silent and stark against the horizon. And if you're very lucky, you might even see a reindeer herder kneeling in prayer, asking the gods for forgiveness for what happened here all those years ago. The reindeer herders returned to the area and built their camps on the blast zone. Their dogs still refused to enter the circle of dead trees. For them, something evil lurked in the silence. Eventually, the forest began to grow back, but it never reclaimed the area of dead trees. They became known as the Stones of Tunguska, standing in silent testament to the power of the explosion. What we do know is that the force of the explosion was over 1,000 times greater than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima. The energy released was equivalent to 12 megatons of TNT. If the meteor had hit the Earth, instead of exploding, it would have left a crater over half a mile wide and 200 feet deep. But there's no evidence of that happening. One scientist argued that a meteorite must have crashed into the Earth, but this did unexplain why there was no impact crater, or why the rocks were found miles away from the epicenter. Another suggested that perhaps it was a comet, but there were no icicles or fragments left behind, only dust. But the sound grew louder. It was the rumble of a train, except it wasn't coming from the tracks. It was coming from inside the Earth. The ground vibrated with such force that it shook the house to its foundations, and when the dust settled, they found the rock. But no permanent settlement stood here until Russian explorers staked their claim to this savage land. Many never made it home. The winter was harsh and unforgiving. Food supplies dwindled and men turned on one another. Only a few would survive the ordeal. The year was 1908. The place was remote, so remote that it took over a decade for word of this cataclysm to reach the outside world. In the days before satellites and GPS, Siberia was as empty and unknown as the moon. Among them was an engineer named Sergei, who returned to civilization with a tale so outlandish that no one believed him. Part 2. The uninvited guest news of the rock spread like wildfire. Scientists from all over Russia flocked to the site, trampling the sacred burial grounds in their haste to get there. Among them was a geologist named Gregory, who was shocked by what he found. The rock was gone. The crater had filled with water and was teeming with fish. But something else caught his eye. The trees were dead, millions of them, and they hadn't been burnt or chopped down. They'd exploded outwards, tearing away from their roots and leaving behind an eerie silence. He followed the path of destruction, passing through a wall of granite so thick that it stopped a man in his tracks. Then the scientists realized the true scale of the disaster. Part 3. The legacy of silenced Tunguska is a mystery that has baffled scientists for generations. As the dust from Tunguska began to settle, the world went back to normal. Yet the catastrophe was so great that it changed the world in ways both big and small. For some, the Tunguska Event was proof of a cosmic curse, a punishment sent from the gods. But there is beauty in the mystery. The Tunguska Event has captured the imagination of artists, writers, and filmmakers. Part 4. The Sky That Fell. We'll never know exactly what happened at Tunguska. The evidence is long gone, lost to time and erosion. If you want to visit the site of the Tunguska explosion today, you won't find much evidence of it. Now check out the day the world turned to glass, or click this other video instead. The last time I was here, there was only ice. I am not what you call life. I am older. I remember a time when these lands flowed with warmth, and how those memories, like the old stone monoliths, can teach us things that have been lost for a very long time. This is a story about memory, about how we remember and why we tell stories about what we remember. They moved the camp closer to the shard. Anna insisted the readings were intensifying. All 3 members of the team were visited by visions, strange and overlapping. Anna saw herself floating above a vast tundra under a black halo. Strange figures moved across the ice, like predators hunting. In her hands, the knife trembled slightly. "Are you ready?" he asked. The tunnels sloped downward, and after what felt like hours, the 3 emerged, blinking into another cavern. Here, stalactites dripped from the ceiling, catching the light, filtering through cracks in the ceiling. In the distance, something pulsed with a cold, alien light. As they approached, they realized it was a glass case suspended in midair, hovering over a pit of darkness. The voice seemed to sigh, a sound of weariness spanning millennia. Each member of the expedition grappled with the voice's challenge, each seeking an appropriate response. Anna, ever the pragmatist, focused on the practical. Anna, ever quick to analyze, stepped forward. Here time flows differently, measured not in years or days, but in echoes and reflections. I am the Echo Keeper, servant of the Everglades. How may I serve you? I think, she said slowly, we are inside the shard, or maybe inside the memory of the shard. We seek knowledge, she said, her voice ringing with newfound confidence. We wish to learn all that we can. The Echo Keeper bowed. As you wish, then let us begin. We wish to learn, she finally said, her voice echoing in the vast space. To understand the past, perhaps even help our world today. The voice chuckled, a hollow sound that sent shivers down their spines. Ambitiously, very well. I will grant your wish, but be warned. Knowledge is a double-edged sword. Be cautious of what you uncover, mortals, lest you find yourselves lost in the labyrinth of ages. With that, the voice faded, leaving them in expectant silence. You seek answers, it said, and I hold many, but what good are answers without understanding? Without context, they mean little. When their vision returned, they found themselves in a new place. Gone was the cavern with its dripping stalactites and distant sky. Instead, they stood in a vast chamber illuminated by an ethereal blue glow. Before them stretched a crystalline river reflecting the cavern ceiling. Around them, colossal structures shimmered, crafted from a substance that seemed both alien and familiar. Towering spires reached towards unseen heights, while intricate carvings adorned the walls, depicting scenes both wondrous and strange. You are but children playing at knowledge, poking and prodding at powers you do not comprehend. You think yourself so clever, deciphering runes and chasing whispers, but true wisdom is earned, not sought. So I ask again, what will you do with my gifts? Within it, tendrils of light writhed, pulsing in time with a low, mournful hum. A single shard floated in the center, bathing the cavern in an eerie glow. It throbbed and pulsed, seeming to beckon with silent urgency. Above it, the ceiling shimmered, revealing a view of the endless night sky. Stars swirled overhead, guiding the lost souls below. She took a deep breath, then nodded, descending into the darkness after Anna. She closed her eyes, feeling the vibrations thrumming through the cavern. Constantine walked through an impossible city of light, where buildings touched the sky and streets were paved with diamonds. I remember a time when these lands flowed with warmth. Anna glanced at her companions, searching for an answer. Constantine's face was grim, his eyes narrowed in thought. Nadia, however, seemed transfixed by the shard, her gaze unblinking. My memory is a river, filled with images and echoes. I show you life and death. I show you pain and sorrow. What will you do with these gifts? The stars whispered around him in forgotten dialects. And Nadia screamed. Her equipment now flickered uncontrollably, as if pulled between dimensions. Constantine didn't trust machines to interpret miracles, but he trusted Anna. She had never been wrong before. Deep in the shattered forest, Nadia avoided the shard entirely, choosing instead to carve symbols into bark with bone. She carried the team deep into the shattered forest to a stone monolith, buried under moss and collapsed trunks. At its base, more mushrooms grew than Nadia could identify. Some glowed faintly in the gloom. "My God," she breathed. "Even after all this time, it remains." Constantine knelt beside her, tracing patterns in the dirt. "What are we looking for?" he asked. Anna joined them, her brow furrowed. She reached out to touch the rough bark of a nearby tree, then paused, listening intently. "I hear it," she whispered, turning to the others, her eyes shining with excitement. "Under here, under the stones, there's something else. Something is under here." Constantine looked from Anna to the mushrooms at their feet, then back to the monolith. He drew his knife and began to dig at the base, scraping away dirt and decaying wood until his blade hit something hard. He brushed more debris away, revealing a rough-hewn stone slab set into the forest floor. Anna stepped forward and pushed aside the remaining branches. As the last log shifted, the slab began to spin, revealing a gaping hole leading into the earth. When she heard them approach, she stood slowly, her face pale, eyes dark. "What did you see?" Anna asked, kneeling beside her friend. Nadia shuddered. "Too much," she whispered. "We must go. It does not want us here." "How do you know that?" Anna pressed. But Nadia shook her head, already moving toward the shattered forest. "I don't know," she said, "but I feel it. It is angry." This was her gift, her way of reading the world. She could feel the patterns in the forest around them, the way the trees fell or sprouted, the habits of the animals that passed through. These patterns held it back. It wanted to speak. That night, the earth dreamt. In the morning, the fire had died. Anna and Kostia found Nadia kneeling by the monolith, her back to them. They followed Nadia's lead. Anna looked back at the others, her gaze locked with Constantine's. Slowly, she nodded and stepped into the darkness. Constantine met her gaze, then turned to Nadia. The passage smelled of dust and decay. The air hung heavy, making each breath a chore. "The source," Anna whispered, reaching out a tentative hand. Then a voice echoed in their minds. "I am not what you call life. I am older." The question hung in the air, heavy with unspoken potential. Constantine cleared his throat. "Why are you showing us this?" he asked, his voice echoing strangely within the cavern. "Why now?" Silence descended, thick and suffocating. Suddenly, the shard flared, bathing the cavern in blinding light. Nadia gasped, stumbling back. "What has happened?" she whispered, her voice echoing oddly in the vast space. Then a new voice echoed around them. "Welcome, travelers, to the heart of the Everglades." Anna straightened her shoulders. "In the last seconds, you can see the calm before the storm. A crack appears in the ice, Something is about to happen here. What? We don't know yet, but we can feel the anticipation building. The best way to keep an audience engaged is to make them feel like they rewrite there in the action, experiencing everything alongside the characters. How do you achieve this effect? Let's find out in today's video. Hi everyone, today we're diving into chapter 4 of our science fiction adventure story. The visitors, he's fidgeting, his heart is racing, and he's constantly adjusting his instrument. By showing us these physical manifestations of his nervousness, we as readers immediately connect with him and understand his emotional state without being explicitly told. In this chapter, our intrepid explorers encounter a mysterious visitor who has been waiting for their arrival. But who is this visitor and what do they want? Let us dive in and find out how the author masterfully builds suspense and keeps us on the edge of our seats. For example, the visitor's cryptic reply, "I speak memory," immediately establishes its enigmatic nature. It doesn't answer Constantine's question directly, but instead raises more questions, keeping us engaged and curious. Notice the use of phrases like shimmer of heat and light and wrapped in humanoid form. These descriptions not only appeal to our visual sense, but also create a strange, otherworldly atmosphere that makes us feel like we're right there in the forest with the characters. The creature stood motionless, a shimmer of heat and light wrapped in a humanoid form. It didn't blink, it didn't breathe, yet it watched them with unnerving stillness. Constantine stepped forward, his heart thudding. "You speak our language. I speak memory," the figure replied. "Think of a character in your story who is scared. Instead of saying she was scared, show us her fear through her actions. Maybe she's biting her nails, or maybe she's wringing her hands. Show us the physical manifestation of her fear. If you already have a scene written, go back and add sensory details to bring it to life." First, the author uses strong verbs and vivid imagery to create a sense of movement and energy. It was a swirling vortex of energy, a gateway to the unknown. This sentence is a great example of how the author uses language to create a vivid and suspenseful scene. Instead of just saying the sky was dark or stormy, the author uses figurative language to transform the sky into a menacing presence. The sky is no longer a passive backdrop. It's an active participant in the scene, swirling and changing in a way that suggests danger and mystery. This sentence also uses metaphor and personification to great effect. The sky is described as a swirling vortex of energy, a gateway to the unknown. These descriptions create a sense of movement and mystery, suggesting that there is something powerful and otherworldly at work. The use of figurative language in this sentence not only makes the writing more engaging and memorable, but also helps to create a sense of atmosphere and suspense that draws the reader into the story. Phrases like swirling vortex and trees around them began to glow, create a dynamic and unsettling scene that draws us right into the moment. Remember, it's in the details, the sensory imagery, the evocative language, and the carefully paced scenes that you'll create a story that truly comes alive for your readers. Thank you for joining us today. If you found this analysis helpful, please remember to share and subscribe. We'd love to have you back for more literary deep dives in the future. Until then, keep reading, keep writing, and keep exploring the wonderful world of literature. Happy writing. Second, the author doesn't shy away from using sensory details to immerse us in the experience. The wind whispering through the trees, the thrumming of energy in the ground, and the eerie glow of the trees all appeal to our auditory and visual senses, making the scene come alive. Third, the author builds suspense by emphasizing the unknown and potential danger. We don't know exactly what's happening, but the characters' reactions, especially their fear and uncertainty, create a sense of foreboding, keeping us on edge. Describe what your character sees, hears, smells, tastes, and touches. And finally, let's talk about dialogue. Think of a piece of dialogue from your story that reveals something about your character or advances the plot. Share it in the comments below, maintaining our interest and preventing the story from becoming stagnant. Your tongue is just one thread in the loom. Anna adjusted her instruments nervously. You're not human. I was never meant to be. Nadia fell to her knees. Her eyes were wide with excitement. Constantine nodded, his face grim. There's too much energy here. It's destabilizing the equipment, Anna exclaimed, gesturing to the humming devices. She was right. The forest was alive with energy. The wind seemed to whisper secrets through the trees, and the very ground beneath their feet thrummed with power. Constantine gripped his rifle tightly, his senses on high alert. Be careful, Hannah, he warned, his voice echoing in the stillness. Whatever this place is, it's not safe. Anna took a deep breath, trying to calm her racing heart. But the sight that greeted her when she looked up sent a shiver down her spine. Above them, the sky was no longer a peaceful expanse of stars. It was a swirling vortex of energy, a gateway to the unknown. As the energy intensified, the trees around them began to glow with an eerie light, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Constantine felt a growing sense of dread. Whatever force they had awakened was beyond their comprehension. Then it suddenly begins to walk away without any clear indication of its intentions. This creates a sense of uncertainty and potential threat, keeping us on edge and wondering what will happen next. It's the walker between, she whispered. The one my ancestors feared. The one in the sky legends. The entity's head tilted at her words. The Awenki remembered well. The Old One saw me and warned. Constantine tightened his grip on his rifle. Warned of what? That your kind would hear the call before it was meant to be answered. The shard behind it pulsed brighter, warmer. Honor's devices shut down entirely. Not from malfunction, but refusal. The forest hummed louder. The entity began to walk. Where are you going? Constantine asked. To the place where the sky burned. To the echo of the arrival. The team followed. Hours later, they reached a clearing that hadn't been there before. A crater, smooth, symmetrical, and untouched by time. At its center, embedded deep in the earth, was something they hadn't seen in any books, nor in any telescope SI. A spiral structure that shimmered like water, but held firm like stone. The entity raised its hand. This is the antenna, it said. It was not meant to awaken. Constantine's voice shook. What happens if it does? The entity turned to them, expression unreadable. Then all memory will return. Anna whispered. Memory of what? The entity smiled. What you were before you were human. Now let's break down some elements of the storytelling that make this passage so gripping. Show, don't tell. A visual feast for the reader. Instead of simply telling us the character was nervous, the author shows us through his actions. Sensory details. Bringing the world to life, the author doesn't just tell us the forest was dark. He envelops us in it. Dialogue that reveals character and plot. Every line of dialogue in this passage serves a purpose. It's not just about moving the plot forward, but also revealing character and building suspense. Building suspense? Keeping us on the edge of our seats, the author expertly builds suspense throughout the passage. We're introduced to a mysterious, possibly dangerous creature. Pacing, the art of slow and fast. The pacing of this passage is masterful. The author slows down the narrative when it's as important for us to experience the scene with the characters, and speeds up the pacing when describing the journey to the clearing *** show. Don't tell. an exercise in showing, not telling asterisk asterisk. Now, try this. Exercise yourself. By understanding and implementing these literary devices, you can create a story that truly captivates your readers, pulling them into your world and keeping them engaged until the very end. Let's look at another excerpt from the same chapter. Constantine, get ready. It's happening again, Anna said urgently. What techniques does the author use to create this eerie and suspenseful atmosphere? Let's take a closer look at the sentence. Above them, the sky was no longer a peaceful expanse of stars. And now it's your turn. Take the techniques we've discussed today and apply them to your own writing. Later that night, the spiral began to change. Not visibly, but audibly. The hum shifted. From steady pulses to rhythmic beats. Like language, like a countdown, Anna huddled by the fire, sketching formulas furiously. He paced back and forth near the campfire, his eyes scanning the darkening woods. The familiar crackle and whisper of the Siberian night suddenly seemed ominous. The very shadows cast by the fire danced with unseen figures. He tried to dismiss his fears, attributing them to the weariness of a long journey and the isolation of their camp, but a primal instinct told him there was danger lurking in the periphery of his vision. The frequency isn't random, it's a code. It was unlike anything she had ever seen. A grotesque parody of humanity with its twisted limbs and vacant stare. Yet there was something about its posture, the way it held its head, that struck her as oddly familiar. She raised her hands in a gesture of peace, willing the creature to understand, to see past the darkness that clouded its mind. Suddenly, a chilling sound pierced the night, a guttural growl that seemed to emanate from the depths of the earth. In that instant, Anna understood. This was no monster. It was a guardian, a protector, twisted by the darkness that had seeped into this place. She spoke of the world beyond the forest, of the beauty that lay hidden beneath the snow, of the hope that flickered even in the darkest of nights, her voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance. Her eyes, once filled with the warmth of human emotion, now seemed distant, like stars in the night sky. The campfire sputtered, casting long, distorted shadows that writhed and twisted as if mimicking the turmoil in Constantine's soul. The growl rumbled in Anna's chest, a physical manifestation of the turmoil within her own soul. The whispers of the trees, once a source of unease, now seemed like a comforting lullaby. In that moment, he realized that he wasn't just witnessing a battle between darkness and light. He was part of it. It took a hesitant step back, then another, as if testing, sensing the sincerity in Anna's voice. He recalled the warmth of her smile, the kindness in her eyes, the unwavering determination in her spirit. Then slowly, ever so slowly, the creature lowered its head, a gesture of submission, of trust, but most of all, he marveled at the courage that now shone through her, making her as radiant as the sun breaking through the clouds. Constantine rushed to her side, his heart pounding. He had never seen her so drained, so utterly spent. It was a creature of legend, born of the very essence of the forest, a guardian that had slumbered for centuries. She had faced the darkness and emerged victorious, not just for herself, but for the forest, for the world. She could feel the darkness trying to pull her under, but she resisted, clinging to the last vestiges of light. He had never seen her like this, so vulnerable yet so strong. This was no animalistic snarl. It carried an intelligence that sent shivers down Constantine's spine. Whatever was out there was aware, was watching them. The forest around them was alive, vibrant, and pulsing with a renewed energy. A repeating structure? It looks like ... DNA? Constantine's brow furrowed. You mean biological? No, Anna replied. Architectural. It's like the whispers in the trees had revealed only a fraction of their secrets. The path ahead would be fraught with challenges, but together they would face whatever came next, stronger, wiser, and more united than ever before. It moved with an unnatural fluidity, gliding closer until it stood bathed in the ethereal glow of the firelight. Its features, if it could be called that, were a horrifying tapestry of bone and sinew. Where flesh should have been, there was only a gaping maw filled with gnashing teeth and eyes that burned with an infernal light. It wasn't just a monster, it was a manifestation of primal fear itself. It's building something. From the edge of camp, Nadia began to chant. Not Iwenki, not Russian, something older. Konstantin crept closer. Where did you learn that? Nadia didn't answer. The growl echoed in her bones, resonating with a deep, unsettling familiarity. The hairs on her arms stood on end, and she shivered, pulling her jacket tighter around her as if it could offer protection from whatever menace was stirring in the night. Her eyes were milky white. The visitor appeared again, forming from heat waves beside the shard. You are decoding the legacy, it said, unraveling the codex we sealed. Constantine stepped forward. Why seal it? Because it breaks you? Before he could respond, the forest shuddered. Trees at the crater's edge began to shift, roots untangling from the earth, revealing subterranean patterns, glyphs etched into stone long before any civilization walked Siberia. Anna approached them. This language, ... it's recursive. It rewrites itself as you translate it. Nadia gasped. My people spoke of a lost tongue, one that erases what you were to make room for what you will be. The visitor's voice dropped. Soon the antenna will finish its scan, and when it does, memory will awaken in all who remain. Constantine clenched his fists. What memory? The visitor smiled faintly. The one you buried when you learned to lie. It was as if the forest itself was having a conversation with Anna, sharing its deepest secrets through the language of trees. Each tree had its own voice, rustling leaves, whispering tales of ages past. As she continued her work, more fragments of the code revealed themselves, hidden within the forest's embrace, symbols carved on ancient stones. Remnants of a forgotten script danced before her eyes. Anna felt a surge of excitement. With each passing moment, she delved deeper into the mystery of the code. Meanwhile, Constantine couldn't shake off a growing unease. As the night deepened, the whispers in the forest grew louder, coalescing into murmurs, then into voices. In the flickering light of the fire, Nadia's chanting reached a fever pitch. Just then, a dark shape emerged from the trees. With a deafening roar, it lunged. Anna felt a jolt, as if the forest itself had recoiled in pain. She looked up at the strange creature standing before them, and then it let out a second roar, not a sound of aggression, but of anguish. With a sudden surge of determination, Anna pushed away the encroaching shadows and stepped forward. As she did, the forest whispered its approval, the trees swaying gently as if in encouragement. Her voice echoed with newfound strength. She knew she couldn't fight this creature with violence, so she fought with understanding, with empathy. Slowly, the creature's posture relaxed. The burning intensity in its eyes dimmed, replaced by a flicker of recognition. The growl subsided, leaving behind a heavy silence. The fate of the forest, perhaps the fate of the world, hung in the balance. Constantine watched in awe as Anna engaged the creature, her voice ringing with a power that seemed to resonate with the very essence of the forest. He remembered the first time he had heard her laughter echoing through the halls of their university, how it had drawn him in like a moth to a flame. As the night wore on, Constantine found himself drawn deeper into the mystery of the forest, the shadows no longer menacing, but intriguing. He looked up at the sky, the vast expanse of stars twinkling above him like celestial guardians. The forest held its breath. Every leaf, every twig, every root straining toward the clearing where Anna stood. The darkness that had clung to it seemed to dissipate, revealing a form both beautiful and terrible. As dawn painted the sky with hues of gold and crimson, the creature vanished, melting back into the embrace of the forest, taking with it the darkness that had threatened to consume it. Left alone in the clearing, Anna collapsed onto a nearby log, exhaustion washing over her in waves. He helped her to her feet, and they walked back to the fire in silence, the weight of the night pressing down on them. As the first rays of sunlight touched the clearing, Anna looked up at the sky with a newfound wonder. She turned to Constantine, her eyes shining with excitement. And as they stood there, hand in hand, watching the forest awaken, they knew that their journey was far from over. It had been a week since humanity's contact with the unknown visitors had ended, and now a new visitor was here, though whether by chance or design, no one could tell. He found her in the remains of an abandoned observatory, surrounded by ancient equipment and volumes filled with the universe's secrets. She was there before me, her back to the door. She turned when she heard me enter. Anna paced restlessly, her face pale in the dim light of the observatory. I pored over the data, trying to find a pattern, a meaning, but the signal was unlike anything I'd ever seen, defying my attempts at analysis. The silence was deafening. Had it been a one-time transmission? Was the sender gone? Or worse, was it watching us, evaluating our response? The silence stretched on, each moment filled with a growing sense of unease. I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being watched. The signal flared to life, crackling with energy. It was a new message, one that seemed to reverberate with power. We are here. We were participants in a cosmic drama of which we knew neither the script nor the stage. The game had changed, and we were now players on a field where the stakes were higher than we could imagine. The question wasn't whether they were here, it was what would happen now that they knew we were aware of their presence. The answer, I feared, lay hidden in the depths of the ancient texts, in the whispers of long-dead languages. It was a mystery that had been buried for centuries, waiting for the day it would be unearthed. And now that day had come. The words hung in the air, echoing the vastness of space. They were here. Were they watching us? Waiting? The thought sent a shiver down my spine. I couldn't shake off the feeling that we were being tested, evaluated. What were they waiting for? And when would it happen? The message repeated several times, each repetition more insistent than the last. Here were they watching us, waiting. Every rustle of leaves, every creak of the observatory seemed to carry a hint of menace. Anna, meanwhile, grew increasingly restless. She would sit for hours staring at the signal on the screen, her brow furrowed in concentration. But this time, it was different. The familiar voice spoke again, this time with a hint of urgency. Do you understand? The transmitter remained stubbornly silent, leaving us hanging, unable to communicate, unable to reach out. Days turned into weeks, and the signal continued to taunt us, coming and going at will. The weight of our isolation pressed down on us, a constant reminder of our helplessness. We were prisoners in our own observatory, trapped in a game of cosmic hide-and-seek with an intelligence we couldn't comprehend. The message repeated several times, each repetition more insistent than the last. Do you understand? What did they want us to understand? Were they trying to warn us about something? The thought that we were on the verge of making contact sent a thrill through me, but it was laced with fear. What if they weren't friendly? What if their advanced technology meant they were a threat? The observatory, once a sanctuary of knowledge, felt like a prison. The walls closing in, the windows bars. I couldn't help but wonder if the ancient builders of this place had ever felt the same way, trapped and watched, hoping for rescue that never came. There were dark circles under her eyes, and her normally vibrant spirit seemed dampened. I worried that she might be losing hope. that the burden of our secret was becoming too much for her to bear. "We have to tell the others," she said urgently. It was subtle, a slight modulation in the signal, like a hidden note in a melody. I played it back slowly, isolating the frequency, and as I listened, my heart skipped a beat. It was a whisper, a voice from the past. I rushed to the computer, pulling up the archive of ancient languages. There, among the dead scripts, I found a match. The signal contained words. Actual words spoken in a language that was hundreds of years old. I raced to find Anna. "Come quick," I said, breathless. "I think I've cracked the code." Together, we deciphered the message. It was a single sentence, a simple question. "Are you receiving me?" My throat tightened. We weren't alone. Someone, or something, was out there listening, waiting. They need to know. But I shook my head, my heart heavy. This discovery was too big, too overwhelming for them to handle. It would only cause panic. I made a decision. "We'll keep this between us for now," I told Anna. "We'll monitor the signal, try to understand it, but we won't tell anyone else. Not yet." Anna looked at me, her eyes wide with concern. "Are you sure this is wise? What if we can't decipher the message? What if it's a warning we can't heed?" "Then we'll deal with it," I said, forcing myself to sound confident. "But we're not giving up. We owe that much to ourselves, to the legacy of the ancients who built this place, and to the future of humanity." She didn't reply, but I could see she understood. We were on the edge of something big, something that could change everything. "I thought you were gone," I said, surprised to see her. "I thought you didn't want to come back." "I didn't," she admitted. "But you left a message, so you came looking for me." "Not only that," she added softly, "I came looking for answers." I approached hesitantly, unsure of what to say. When I finally spoke, my voice was barely above a whisper. "There aren't any answers here. This place holds only questions." "Then let's ask the first one together," she said, stepping aside to reveal a telescope pointed towards the visitor's constellation. "What do you want to know?" For a moment, I saw a flicker of her old self in her determined eyes. It gave me hope. Maybe she would rediscover that part of herself again. But there was something else in those eyes, too, a hint of sadness. Maybe some parts of us are meant to stay lost forever. We spent weeks observing their constellation, mapping its movements, searching for patterns. The visitors had given us a window into their world, a world that existed on a different plane of existence. "Look," she whispered, pointing to the screen. A new signal had emerged from the constellation. It was faint, almost imperceptible, yet it held an undeniable power. As we watched, the signal grew stronger, clearer. It was a message. I felt a surge of adrenaline. Could this be it? Were the visitors finally making contact? But as the message resolved itself into coherent pulses, my excitement turned to dread. It wasn't a greeting or an invitation. It was a warning. They had shown us wonders beyond our wildest dreams, but they had also revealed a darkness that chilled me to the bone. Yet we couldn't tear our eyes away. The more we learned about the visitors, the more we realized how much we didn't know. Their technology was so advanced, it defied our understanding. Their motives, even more inscrutable. One evening, while studying the data, Anna gasped. The message echoed in my mind long after we had switched off the telescope. Days turned into weeks, and still the signal remained, growing steadily stronger. Then one night, as I was poring over the data, I noticed something. Suddenly, the signal cut out. Then just as suddenly as it had stopped, the signal returned. We tried responding, sending a coded message of our own, but our reply was met with silence. Just when I thought I couldn't endure another day of the maddening silence, it happened again, as the signal faded and then cut out abruptly, leaving us in a deafening silence. I realized that we weren't just observers anymore. Beneath the spiral, the team found stairs. Not crafted by hands, but carved by pressure. Like something immense had once knelt there and etched its own bones into the rock. Constantine descended first, torch in hand, its light flickering against impossibly smooth walls. Glyphs danced along the surface, not written, but reactive. The tunnel yawned wider, revealing a sight that made them freeze. In the newly formed crater stood the skeleton of a city. But not just any city. This was New Hope, or what remained of it. "This can't be real," he stammered. Each step closer to the light brought a flood of memories, emotions, experiences that were not her own, yet felt deeply familiar. She felt Ilias's wonder as he marveled at the icy spires, each one a testament to a life form that had mastered energy, matter, and space. She saw his awe when the light sphere pulsed, sending tendrils of energy that wove through the rock, birthing new ice formations with a grace that spoke of eons spent in such artistry. How does one explain a forgotten language? Finished Elias, stepping closer to the radiant sphere. Faces that mirrored the horror of the buried past, of choices made and lives shattered, faces that hinted at the terrible price of their ancestors' hubris. There was nothing left here for them but echoes and ice. She turned away, fighting the urge to glance back at the consumed Elias. Below them, the desert stretched to the horizon, a sea of sand and rock. But to Anna, it seemed like a vast, empty canvas, waiting for the first strokes of a new dawn. She had seen enough of the future to last a lifetime. Most of all, she sensed his growing obsession, how the light drew him in, promising knowledge that could shatter or reshape the world as they knew it. They didn't need to look back to know that the slumbering giant had stirred. Its dreams were filled with starlight, and the ghosts of those who had delved too deep, sought too much, and ultimately forgotten who they were and why they had come, in the face of oblivion. Anna clung to the memories of the living, to the warmth of the sun on her skin and the laughter of children playing. She would carry the knowledge of the buried past, but she would not let it consume her. He stretched out a hand as if to touch the light, but Anna caught his arm. He was forgetting his purpose, the mission they had undertaken together. He didn't respond. His eyes locked on the dancing light, but that flicker was quickly extinguished, replaced by a haunted look that chilled her to the bone. "You don't understand," he whispered, his voice hollow, echoing in the vast space. "This is what we've lost. This is what we could have been." "Elias!" she said again, stepping closer, reaching for him, hoping to pull him back to her, back to the world that needed them. Whoever this being was, it wore his skin, held his memories, but was not him. The sphere pulsed, and the faces shifted, contorting in silent screams. And in that moment, Anna understood. This was not just a display of power or knowledge. This was a warning. The beings here had not mastered energy and matter. They had been consumed by it. Their obsession had become their undoing. He was forgetting that they were not meant to stay. His focus narrowed, his breathing quickened. He was losing himself to the whispers of the long dead. "Careful," she whispered, sensing something in his posture, a shift in his eyes that both fascinated and frightened her. For a moment, Elias seemed to hesitate, as if torn between two wills. Then he slowly drew his hand back, his gaze fixed on the pulsating core of light. "I have to," he murmured, more to himself than to her. "I need to understand." The place where humanity had taken root after the cataclysm, clinging to life under the stars. The place where Anna and Elias had hoped to find peace, and now it was a tomb. Or perhaps it had always been a tomb, and only now was revealing itself as such. As he passed them, they shimmered faintly, replaying fragments, glimpses of landscapes that did not resemble Earth, and stars arranged in alien constellations, Constantine gripped his torch tight. The ascent would be treacherous without the guidance of the builders. But the alternative, whatever slumbered below, promised only oblivion. Between these frozen pillars flowed rivers of liquid light, cascading down terraces of shimmering crystal. But what stole their breath was the source of this spectacle. At the heart of this icy realm hovered a sphere of pure energy, bathing the landscape in an ethereal glow, and from its depths echoed the whispers of creation, of worlds birthed and sustained by consciousness. So they climbed, pulling themselves up, hand over hand. The air grew colder, thinner, the wall became a ladder of ice. And when they finally hauled themselves onto the ledge above, they found themselves in a landscape that defied comprehension. Anna followed, notebook clutched like a shield. "This isn't a structure," she whispered. "It's an archive." Nadia hesitated. "My people dreamed of places like this. They said memory was stored, not in words, but in form. Living memory." At the bottom, they reached a chamber. Floating above the ground was a sphere. Not solid, but fluid, like time, suspended in shape. Within it, thousands of images flickered. Cities carved into ice, creatures with eyes like galaxies, and a recurring symbol. A spiral divided into 13 threads. The visitor appeared again, voice quiet but resonant. "This is what you buried." Constantine stepped closer to the sphere. "This is us, a version of you, before forgetting, before choosing survival over truth." Anna touched the sphere's edge. Her fingers trembled. "It's rewriting what I know. I can feel it." The chamber pulsed. A vision gripped them all. A world long gone, where humans were not separate from the stars, but co-authors of reality. Civilization built not on dominance, but resonance. And then a rupture. A decision to forget, to become lesser, so that something deeper could be protected. Constantine staggered back. "Why show us this now?" The visitor stepped into the light of the sphere. "Because the antenna has chosen, it will remember." The images faded, leaving behind a ringing silence. Then the floor rumbled, not with an earthquake's violence, but the measured tread of something colossal. Above, rocks groaned as the ceiling split. Light blossomed in the fissure, revealing not the sky, but another glyph. One word etched in starlight, ascent. Anna felt a hand on hers, startled. She looked up into Nadia's grave eyes. "It's a tomb," Nadia breathed, her voice echoing in the vast space. "And we woke the dead." The earth shuddered again. From above came a sound that seemed to suck the breath from their lungs. They raced upward, scrambling over slick stones. Before them, the spiral of the shaft beckoned upwards, towards the unknown that stirred within the earth. Towering spires of rock and ice pierced the sky, forming a cathedral of jagged teeth that seemed to drink the stars. Constantine gaped at the sight, his scientific mind struggling to categorize what it saw. But understanding, Anna knew, was a dangerous currency here. Then she saw his confusion, his terror as faces flickered across the light sphere, their eyes wide with fear, their mouths open in silent screams. She had to stop him, not because she feared the light itself, but because she saw where his fascination was leading. "Elias," she said, her voice surprisingly steady, "we have to go. We don't belong here." He turned then, and for a moment she saw a flicker of her friend, the man who had risked everything to save the world. Hope died in Anna's chest. This wasn't Elias. She looked back at the spiral shaft, now no more than a pinprick in the vastness of the ice. As they walked away, the icy ground rumbled beneath their feet. They emerged from the ice realm, blinking against the sudden brightness of the outside world. It began with the birds. Not just in Siberia, across the world. Migratory flocks flew in erratic formations, spiraling through the skies as if pulled by invisible threads. They rise where we buried the truth. Constantine scanned the frequency logs. This message isn't localized. It's global. He turned to Nadia, who clutched a bone pendant. Her fingers trembling. The remembering has begun. Wails breached in unison. Lightning storms danced above deserts long asleep. Honest Radio caught another burst of transmission. Not just one word this time. A full sentence. Then came the satellite signal. A flash from the Andes. A structure matching the Siberian spiral. Half buried. Waking, each twist of the spiral seemed to hold a universe of knowledge, a record of times long gone, yet inexplicably linked to the present. The very earth around them hummed with an unseen energy, resonating with an intelligence beyond human ken. The forest bent slightly toward the spiral, not from wind, but reverence. The visitor replied. The codex will open soon. The trees, as if awakening from a deep slumber, rustled their leaves in unison, creating a chorus of sound that echoed the rhythm of the spiral. The sky overhead, once a tapestry of stars, was now a swirling vortex of color. With a mix of trepidation and awe, she stepped forward, drawn inexorably towards the unfolding wonder. The symphony swelled, urging them forward. The portal throbbed, promising both peril and enlightenment. Who dares disturb the slumber of the ancients? Who seeks to breach the barriers between worlds? Its voice echoed with an otherworldly resonance, shaking them to their core. Her companions, equally entranced, followed close behind, their steps echoing the monument's ancient pulse. The monument, they realized, was not just a silent sentinel. This was a place untouched by time, a sanctuary of existence, yet profoundly alien. They were tall and slender, their bodies adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change like the northern lights. Their faces were beautiful, their features sharp and angular, their eyes luminous pools of starlight. His eyes, twin stars in the twilight, seemed to pierce through Anna and the others, reading their thoughts and emotions. "We come in peace," she called out, her voice echoing in the vast space. "You have journeyed far and braved much to reach this place. Your journey is a long one," he said, "filled with challenges and revelations. Are you prepared?" "We have come to learn," she said, her voice echoing with reverence, "to understand the mysteries of this world and our place within it." "Why have you come?" The air crackled with tension, as if the world itself held its breath. The true journey, the one that would test their courage, their faith, and their very understanding of existence, was just unfolding before them. The world, as they knew it, was about to be turned upside down, inside out. They were on the threshold of a new reality, a reality far grander, vaster, and more mystifying than they could have ever conceived. Then, slowly, the portal shifted, revealing a landscape that defied imagination. "We seek understanding, not conquest. We are here to learn." It was a conduit to something vast and ancient, a gateway to realms beyond human perception. His readings were off the charts, defying rational explanation. Mountains soared into the heavens, their peaks wreathed in clouds of amethyst and rose. Rivers of liquid gold meandered through valleys of emerald green, reflecting a sky filled with constellations they had never seen before. All eyes turned to Nadia, then to the spiral, which flared momentarily, bathing the clearing in an otherworldly light. They knew instinctively that something was happening, something profound and momentous. And then there was Nadia, the historian, her eyes shining with excitement, tracing patterns in the monument structure, seeking to decipher its secrets. For a moment, Anna could only stare in awe, her mind struggling to comprehend what she was seeing. These beings, these visitors from realms beyond their own, were not figments of imagination or hallucination. They were real, as real as the sun and moon in the sky, as real as the earth beneath their feet. The colossal spiral in the Siberian wilderness pulsed with an otherworldly glow, a silent sentinel guarding secrets that had lain dormant for millennia. Beside it, a team of explorers stood bathed in the ethereal light, their faces etched with wonder and apprehension. Among them, Anna, her gaze fixed on the spiral, her mind racing to comprehend the enigma before them. The air crackled with energy, and in that heart of the spectacle, Anna saw it, a ripple in the fabric of reality, a tear in the veil that separated the worlds, and every truth you buried in myth, denial, and silence will return. Be ready, human. Memory does not come gently. In Cairo, a similar hum echoed from beneath the temple of Khonsu. You built it when you were more than flesh, when your kind spoke with frequency, not war. In the ruins off Yanaguni Island, divers found underwater glyphs glowing faintly in the dark. Anna pulled out a map, marking each location, a constellation of memory. Forgotten monuments hidden in the skin of the earth. We've only scratched the surface, she said. There's a pattern, a system, something ancient. The visitors stood at the edge of the spiral. It pulsed brighter than before. The lattice of memory is wide. Constantine couldn't keep up. What happens now? The ground quaked. A heavy silence hung in the air, broken only by the rustling leaves. Days had turned into nights since they discovered this place, this monument, as Anna called it, a colossal testament to an ancient past that defied all conventional understanding. Beside her, Constantine, the scientist, his face illuminated by the spiral's eerie glow, was poring over his instruments, his brow furrowed in concentration. Suddenly, Nadia gasped, clutching her pendant, an ancient artifact that had become the focus of their explorations. A jolt ran through the group. In that instant, the forest around them stirred. As the symphony of sound and light reached its crescendo, the monument's core flared brilliantly, casting grotesque shadows that danced around the clearing. She felt a tugging sensation, as if the monument itself was reaching out to her, beckoning her closer. As they approached the center of the clearing, the air grew thick with anticipation. Then from the heart of the vortex, a voice boomed, resonating with the power of 1,000 drums. Anna, summoning every ounce of courage, stepped forward. Silence descended, broken only by the pounding of their hearts. Before them stretched a realm of impossible beauty, a panorama of colors and textures that seemed to shift and flow like a living tapestry. As they gazed upon this breathtaking vista, a sense of overwhelming wonder washed over them, mingled with a deep primal fear. Suddenly, figures emerged from the portal, their forms shimmering like mirages. With a grace that defied gravity, they moved among the trees, seeming at once otherworldly and strangely familiar. The leader, whose presence seemed to command respect and awe, stepped forward. "You are the Seekers," he said, his voice a melodious chime that resonated deep within their souls. Anna, finding her voice, spoke for her companions. A knowing smile touched the leader's lips. Their gazes met, and in that instant, Anna knew that this was only the beginning. And as the portal shimmered behind them, beckoning them back to the world they once knew, they stood on the precipice of an adventure that would redefine their existence. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of morning. Constantine stood by the edge of the crater, watching the last sliver of daylight fade. Beside him, Nadia continued to pace, her eyes blazing with an inner fire. She spoke in a language he didn't understand, but the cadence was ancient, resonant, and it seemed to stir something deep within his bones, like a long, dormant echo. He turned to Anna, who sat cross-legged on the ground, her gaze fixed on the darkening abyss. Since Nadia's first descent into the crater, Anna had become increasingly agitated. writing and rewriting notes in her journal, muttering to herself, running her fingers through her hair until it fell out in clumps. Her eyes, usually warm and inviting, were now fathomless, reflecting the light like pools of liquid silver. She moved with an unsettling grace, her limbs fluid, her steps silent. She looked up, startled, when Constantine approached. I saw things, Constantine, things beyond human ken. The very fabric of reality stretched and flexed like a canvas of stars. Did you learn anything? He asked, his voice hoarse from disuse. More than I expected, she replied, pushing a stray lock of hair behind her ear. How could you have seen all that? I saw the grand tapestry of existence, woven with threads of light and shadow. Constantine, unable to shake off the growing unease, shifted his feet, the silence pressing down on them, thick and heavy, and I saw our place in it, so small, so fragile, yet so infinitely precious. What are we supposed to do? Down there, I felt its current pull me along, showing me glimpses of what has been, what is, and what shall be. We must make a choice, she said, her voice low and somber. He saw sprawling libraries filled with glowing manuscripts, vast star maps, charting constellations unknown to modern science, and whispers of a forgotten language that resonated deep within his soul. It's all right, Constantine, she said softly, her voice a bond to his frayed nerves. You don't have to remember everything, but you must choose to remember something. Above them, another joined it, then another, until a constellation of lights arced across the sky, their paths converging toward a single point. Choose to trust yourself, to trust the echoes of your soul. But these glimpses were not his. They belonged to another, a past life, an ancestral memory, yet they felt achingly familiar. He closed his eyes, took a deep breath, and reached out, seeking the anchor of her gaze. Slowly, carefully, he began to sift through the memories, letting them wash over him, letting them shape and mold him. Each of us, a choice between remembering who we are and forgetting. It hurts, she gasped. So much knowledge, so much history. It's all right, she said, her voice shaking slightly. It's part of the process. The remembering, it's overwhelming. A hush fell over the landscape, broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the distant chirping of crickets. Nadia descended deeper than anyone before her. It's almost as if she unlocked a new level, a new layer of access. One by one, the satellites reached the beam and vanished into its brilliant embrace, leaving the night sky momentarily clear. Tall and imposing, cloaked in shadows, he seemed to materialize out of the darkness. His presence commanded respect, tinged with an air of mystery. The beams vanished, leaving the sky unblemished, dotted only with stars. The satellites remained, however, hovering in a tight cluster, pulsing with a gentle light. The Codex is awake, child, and with its awakening comes great peril, but also great opportunity. They were mere individuals, flawed, fearful, and yet they held the power to influence the course of existence itself. The fate of worlds hangs in the balance, and you, the keepers, hold the key. Because the Codex is awakening and the world is in peril, only we, with our unique bond to both the human and the archetypal realms, can prevent chaos from consuming all. What do you know that we don't? But you must decide. Keep us. Which path you will walk, which destiny you will embrace. More beams shot skyward from other parts of the crater, connecting to new arrivals, weaving a luminous web across the night. I am the visitor, he replied, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in their bones rather than their ears. And you are the keepers. You have journeyed far, endured much, And now you stand on the threshold of your destiny. And you can feel this here on the surface, he pressed. She nodded slowly. There's a hum in the air, a vibration, the weight of the countdown, now ticking away in hours, settled heavily upon them. They were racing against time, against an unknown force that threatened to consume them all. She stood there for a moment, lost in the depths of her own thoughts, a faint smile playing on her lips. When she finally spoke, her voice was different, echoing with an ancient resonance that sent shivers down Constantine's spine. They had been running, hiding, trying to outrun the inevitable, but there was no escape. The moment had come where they had to face the echoes of their past, of their true nature. And whenever Nadia speaks those strange words, the air grows still, charged, expectant. It's like the earth itself is listening. They fell silent, each lost in their thoughts, as darkness deepened, casting long, eerie shadows around them. Nadia emerged from the crater, her face illuminated by an otherworldly glow. "How far down did you go?" Anna asked, her voice barely a whisper. Nadia didn't answer right away. "I went where the roots of remembering run deepest," she said, her gaze fixed on some distant point in the sky. "What did you see?" Anna pressed, leaning closer, her eyes wide with wonder and a touch of fear. "I saw the birth of worlds and the death of suns," Nadia whispered, her voice trailing off as if she were hesitant to speak too freely of what she had witnessed. Her words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. "But you weren't gone long," he managed, trying to break the spell that had settled over them. A faint smile touched Nadia's lips. "Time is but a river, Constantine, flowing ever onward, never ceasing." "And what does it all mean?" Anna asked, her voice trembling slightly. "Why are we here? Why now?" Nadia turned to them, her gaze intense, unwavering. "We are here because we are needed, Anna." "But how?" Constantine blurted out. A shadow passed over Nadia's face, momentarily eclipsing her radiant glow. Her words struck them like physical blows, stealing their breath, anchoring them to the spot. Constantine felt a surge of panic rising within him. Memories, fragmented and vivid, flashed through his mind, leaving him breathless. As if sensing his turmoil, Nadia placed a hand on his arm, her touch grounding him in the present. Her words offered a lifeline, a way to navigate the storm within him. In the distance, a satellite pierced the night sky, streaking across the heavens like a fallen star. "What's happening?" Anna whispered. Awestruck, the codex, Nadia breathed, her eyes shining with awe. "It's unfolding." From the heart of the crater, a beam of light shot skyward, reaching to meet the satellites in their silent dance. Codex synchronization. 50% complete. A disembodied voice echoed, amplified by unseen speakers hidden among the trees. They watched, mesmerized, as the light show continued, each vanishing satellite bringing them closer to the climax of this celestial ballet. Nadia suddenly clutched her head, wincing. "We need to help her," Constantine said, rushing to her side, his panic momentarily forgotten. But Anna was already there, kneeling beside Nadia, her face etched with concern. As if in response, the final satellite reached the summit of its arc, descending slowly into the waiting light. Codex synchronization. 100% complete, the voice boomed, reverberating through the silent night. Then, as abruptly as it began, the light show ended. From the forest's edge, a figure stepped out into the clearing. "Who are you?" Constantine demanded, instinctively stepping in front of Nadia and Anna, ready to defend them. The man tilted his head, revealing a face weathered by time and hardship, yet marked by an underlying nobility. "What destiny?" Anna challenged, her voice ringing with defiance. The visitor turned his gaze to the pulsating satellites, a hint of sadness in his eyes. He turned back, to them, his eyes intent. Within you lies the power to shape the future, to heal the wounds of the past. His words hung in the air, laden with gravity, forcing them to confront the magnitude of what was at stake. Thank you so much for joining us for Chapter 9. We're getting close to the end of our story, so make sure to stay tuned if you want to know how this ends. Signals flew invisibly between them. Not radio waves, but something older, woven into the fabric of time itself. Anna triangulated their positions. 12 spirals, all active. One final site remained unconfirmed. If you enjoyed this chapter, don't forget to leave a like and consider sharing the series with your friends. Okay, let's do this. If this is a network, there must be a central node, a nexus where it all converges. Nadia nodded solemnly. The myths speak of a buried sky beneath the ice. That which sleeps below. Something stirred beneath the ice. Fissures spiderwebbed across the darkening snow, splitting the landscape into jagged shards. In the lowest dip between the monoliths, a hole gaped open, a maw of black ice in the frozen ground. It exhaled a breath of air that rose in a ghostly plume. Faces swam before her eyes, frozen moments of joy, fear, love, and loss, the weight of centuries. The joys and sorrows, hopes and heartbreaks, they pressed against her, threatening to drown her. As her fingers brushed its surface, a jolt shot through her, igniting a cascade of images within her mind. She saw the birth of cities, the rise and fall of empires, the dance of life and death. She witnessed the best and worst of humanity, the soaring heights of achievement, the suffocating depths of despair. Yet amidst the chaos, she saw resilience, the unyielding spirit of humanity refusing to be extinguished. Images of the future flashed before her eyes: war, plague, famine, death, each one a sharp shard piercing the fabric of time. The icy air bit at their lungs, the wind whipping strands of hair across their faces. The crystal in Constantine's hand seemed heavier now, a burden of untold stories pressing against his palm. The ice beneath their feet trembled with ancient power, whispering tales of a forgotten time. For the secrets of the past are not easily unearthed. They lie dormant, waiting patiently for those who have the courage to seek them out. They had uncovered fragments of a buried past, glimpses of lives lived, loved, and lost. But the grand narrative, the true story, it remained elusive, hidden beneath layers of ice and illusion. They stumbled onto the frozen surface, blinking against the harsh light, their bodies aching, their minds reeling from the weight of what they had seen. Fear threatened to paralyze her, yet she forced herself to move forward. She had come too far to turn back now. She saw a young girl laughing, a man cradling a newborn, a community celebrating. The room was silent now. The only sound, their ragged breaths echoing in the vast space. Slowly, carefully, Anna unhooked the rope from the crystal. It was just a piece of rock, cold and inert in her hands. But there was sadness, too, etched in the eyes of a woman gazing at a lifeless child. The despair of a mother clutching an empty cradle. Images of tomorrow flashed before her eyes. Visions of innovation, discovery, connection, hope, possibilities stretched before her, vibrant and exhilarating. With a surge of emotion, Anna realized that this wasn't just a display of events. It was a tapestry of human experience, a testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. Then came anger, the glare of a warrior, the accusing finger, the raised sword. She was part of this story, too. Her choices, her actions, her very being were threads in the grand tapestry of time. Betrayal, the kiss of a lover-turned assassin, the glint of gold in a king's eyes. Finally, there was hope. The hesitant touch of two lovers, the shared gaze of conspirators, the determined face of a leader. It's gone, she whispered, her voice hoarse. The memories, they're gone. Constantine stared at the crystal in his hand, his face etched with grim understanding. It was never here, Anna. What you saw, what we saw, it never happened. Anna's eyes widened, grasping the implications of his words. But the people, the lives, the experiences, they felt so real. They are real, Constantine corrected gently, or they were. But the truth, the true truth, that's what was buried. We were meant to find that today. Hope flickered and flared, desperate to break free of the ice. Anna stepped forward, her hand hovering over the opening. She turned to the others, her face pale against the gloom. Are you sure about this? There has to be another way. Constantine reached out and took her hand, his grip firm, his eyes unwavering. There isn't. Not if we want to reach the node before it closes. His gaze swept across the fractured ice, settling on the gaping hole. This is the only path. The visitor stepped forward, now flickering with unstable light. Grasping a fistful of ancient rope, she descended into the maw of the ice. But here they were three-dimensional, taking shape from the shadows cast by the spiraling patterns. As their eyes adjusted, more details emerged. Frozen figures were caught in postures of worship, their forms distorted as if in a funhouse mirror. In the center of the cavern, a vast icicle towered like a frozen cathedral. At its base lay a pool of water, its surface mirroring the faint light filtering through the ice above. And there, suspended within the watery depths, rested a single crystal. It thrummed with a light that echoed the pulsing of the spirals. A faint glow emanated from within, pulsing with the rhythm of the awakened spirals. Behind her, Constantine secured the rope, his fingers lingering on the cold stone. He shared a tense look with Nadia, then began his descent, hand over hand. He moved after Anna, sliding down the icy slope until he reached the bottom. You are reaching critical mass. The codex is aligning. Soon, it will choose which memory survives. What does that mean? Constantine asked. That not all memories are equal. Some truths fracture, others heal. 3 days remained. Across the world, awakened spirals pulsed in harmony. Constantine stared at the world map. Suddenly, Anna gasped. A message appeared across every device, even those never connected. Asterisk Node 13. Awakening at 82N135E. The Arctic. Constantine felt the chill in his bones before the wind even shifted. The spirals were forming a planetary circuit, one that hadn't activated in millennia, and the final piece rested beneath frozen silence. We have to go, Anna said. No, Nadia replied. We have to remember before we arrive. The snowmobile cut through the endless white, its headlights carving temporary meaning into the featureless landscape. Beyond the pale glow, twilight bled into the endless expanse, blurring the horizon into a watercolor wash. The others joined him, breathless against the wind. In the distance, the sea stretched dark and heavy as ink under a bruised sky. Between them and the water, an arc of black stones rose starkly against the fading light. Ancient and monolithic, they hummed with power. Closer, Constantine could see the patterns etched upon the monoliths, archaic symbols that writhed like living things. They were standing at the edge of time, where the endless present of ice met a past that refused to stay buried. Wind snatched at their faces, carrying whispers from a time before map. This was the edge of known history, of recorded memory. Here, the ice sang of a time when it held a different sky above it, a sky that fell long ago. They reached a rise, and Constantine pushed himself off the sled. As darkness deepened, the wind grew, howling like a displaced spirit. With a deep breath, Anna nodded. They found themselves in a cavern of ice, the walls adorned with the same archaic patterns seen from above. As Anna moved closer, images flickered across the surface of the pool. Anna recoiled. Shaken by the onslaught of emotions, she extended a trembling hand toward the pulsating crystal. Then everything changed. The past receded, replaced by an overwhelming sense of the future. And as she stood there, bathed in the spectral light, she understood that she wasn't just a witness. When she finally looked away, the crystal still hummed with spectral light, but the images had faded from its surface. She turned to Constantine, his face drawn and pale in the spectral light. As the first tendrils of dawn crept over the horizon, casting long shadows across the ice, they made their way back up the cavern. Before them, the monoliths stood stoic and silent, bearing witness to the secrets they held. As they mounted the snowmobiles and disappeared into the swirling mists of the Arctic dawn, the monoliths hummed with a renewed energy. And so the story continues, shaped by the echoes of yesterday, reaching towards the uncertain horizon of tomorrow. Beneath the white silence, the plain sliced through the fractured auroras, a lonely cry against the frozen dark. Below, the Arctic stretched, silent and still. But when the team landed, the ice wasn't solid. It sang. Faintly at first, like the spiral song now threaded through the earth itself. The frequencies rippled across cracks in the ice, like light scaping over glass. Constantine stepped out onto the ice, his eyes scanning the horizon. "There," he said, his voice hushed. Their minds blurred, the biting cold replaced by a dizzying warmth. She cried out, shielding her face from the onslaught of emotions. He turned to the others, his face etched with concern. "Can you feel it?" he asked. "The power of the Codex, it's stirring." "These are the Keepers," he said, "architects of the Codex, guardians of resonance." His gaze locked onto Constantine. "You have journeyed far, Seeker, to awaken the slumbering mind of the earth." "But why?" Beside her, Nadia crumpled, tears streaking down her cheeks. "Why show yourselves now? Because memory cannot be preserved without choice. We came to learn, to understand the melody that binds us to this world, to the earth, to each other." From above, the Arctic spiral flared, a beacon slicing into the aura. The silence was absolute, broken only by the pounding of their hearts. Then, as if in response to their plea, the ground beneath them split open. In that moment, they knew that the words they had spoken, the decisions they had made, the actions they had taken, all of it had led to this moment. They had come to this frozen wasteland seeking answers, but now they realized that they had something far more valuable to offer. The Arctic wind whipped around them, carrying with it the echoes of 1,000 voices, each telling a story of courage and resilience, of hope and despair, of love and loss. The shaft of light from the Codex intensified, illuminating the swirling vortex that connected the past, the present, and the future. "The Codex is open," one of them whispered. "The memories of Earth are now accessible to those who seek them. But remember, Seekers, the past is not a static relic. It is a living, breathing entity that continues to shape our present and our future. It is up to you, the Keepers of the Flame, to ensure that these stories are shared to honor the wisdom contained within them, to learn from the mistakes of the past, and to build a better future for all." With a final surge of energy, the book opened, revealing pages filled with stories that spanned millennia. The auroras danced above them, weaving a tapestry of light and color that mirrored the turmoil in their hearts. A shaft of golden light shot up from the earth, connecting the fractured auroras above with the shards held by the Keepers. The light intensified, revealing a swirling vortex of colors and textures, a kaleidoscope of memories and emotions. It was the Codex, the collective unconscious of humanity, the repository of its hopes and dreams, its fears and regrets, its triumphs and tragedies. They knew that their journey was far from over. They had only begun to scratch the surface of the mysteries that lay hidden beneath the ice. But they were ready. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, to uncover the secrets of the past, and to bring them into the light. As one, the keepers raised their shards toward the sky, bathing the landscape in an ethereal glow. The keepers turned to the team, their faces grave. "One among you must speak the first truth," one of them said. "It will shape the remembering for all." The hum crescendoed, shaking the very foundations of the earth. But all we found was silence. A silence so profound it echoed with untold stories, with whispers of a world that was and could be no more. The spiral sang to you, yet the song was never yours to hear. The path you walked was laid by others, yet the footprints were worn smooth by countless souls. You sought the forgotten truth. But what purpose does truth serve if left unspoken? Beside him, Nadia and Anna stood tall, their faces resolute. "I will speak the first truth," he said, his voice echoing with conviction. "For too long, we have allowed the darkness to consume us, to divide us and to tear us apart. We have chosen to forget the lessons of the past, to ignore the signs of our own folly, to turn away from the suffering of others. But we must remember that we are all connected, that our fates are intertwined, that the choices we make affect not only ourselves, but every living thing on this planet. We must acknowledge the pain that has been buried, the wounds that have festered, the injustices that have gone unchecked. Only then can we begin to heal and to rebuild, to create a future that reflects the values we hold dear. It won't be easy, but it is our responsibility. It is our duty to ensure that the sacrifices of those who came before us were not in vain, that their stories, their struggles, and their triumphs are not forgotten. What value has remembrance if it brings no understanding? Why reveal the secrets of the past, its beginning?" she whispered, her voice strained. "It's actually happening. Past and present began to bleed together, memories not their own flooding, their consciousness, images of a world long gone, of people and places, of laughter and loss, of love and betrayal. Too much, too overwhelming. The Codex is more than a repository of memories. Seeker, it is a living archive, a testament to the resilience of life in the face of oblivion. It is a record of triumphs and tragedies, of love and loss, of hope and despair. It holds the very essence of what it means to be human. The light and the darkness, the beauty and the pain, the joy and the sorrow. To access its wisdom, you must be willing to confront the truths it reveals, even if they shatter your illusions and challenge your beliefs. The 13th spiral, half submerged in ancient frost. Its coils shimmered with a color neither warm nor cold. We seek not to escape the pain, but to understand it, to learn from it, to grow beyond it. For only in facing our darkest fears and embracing our deepest wounds can we truly appreciate the fragility and the strength of the human spirit. Not light, not shadow, just memory. Beside him, Anna shivered, pulling her parka tighter. "What do you feel?" she whispered. "It's waiting," he replied, his gaze locked on the spiral. "It's been waiting for this moment." As they approached, the spiral emitted a low resonant chord that seemed to vibrate in their bones. Anna stumbled, collapsing to her knees. Then suddenly, the visitor materialized beside them, his form shimmering in the swirling mist. But before they could respond, the ground trembled. From the heart of the spiral, 13 figures emerged, materializing one by one until they stood in a circle around the visitor. They were not identical, yet they seemed to belong to the same design, each shimmering with geometry folded in impossible ways, and each held a shard, fragments of a larger whole that fit together like a shattered mirror. The visitor turned to them, his voice echoing with an ancient resonance. Constantine's voice cracked. The lead keeper tilted its head, its gaze piercing. Constantine faltered, searching for words. The lead keeper remained silent for a moment, its gaze sweeping across the frozen landscape. Constantine met its gaze, his determination hardening. "We are willing to face the truth, to confront the shadows that lurk within our memories and within ourselves." A faint hum resonated from the ice beneath them, growing in intensity, until it filled the air with a deafening roar. In that moment, Earth itself seemed to hold its breath. At the center of the vortex, a single book hovered, its pages filled with stories that spanned millennia. They looked at each other, the weight of their mission pressing down on them. Constantine stepped forward, meeting the gaze of the lead keeper. The spiral accepted his words. And then, as if in response to Constantine's words, the ground beneath them rumbled. The keepers gathered closer, their forms merging into a single silhouette against the swirling light. As the keepers faded away, leaving behind only the rustling of the wind and the murmur of the earth, Constantine, Anna, and Nadia stood in the heart of the vortex, surrounded by the echoes of 1,000 voices. For they were the chosen ones, the keepers of the flame, and they would not rest until the memories of Earth were honored and remembered. The next morning, the sun rose over a frozen ocean. Frost sparkled on the ice like a fresh snowfall, muffling sound and casting long shadows. On the ridge overlooking the frozen sea, Constantine stood motionless, wrapped in furs, his eyes fixed on the distant horizon. Beside him, the girl named Nadia waited patiently, her dark braids framing a face both weathered and youthful, her eyes mirroring the endless expanse of the sky. They had been standing there for hours since the first pale fingers of dawn had crept over the ice sheet. She understood his struggle, the weight of expectation pressing down on them. She had seen the determination in the visitor's eyes, the unwavering belief in their mission. As the hours passed, the sky transformed into a canvas of vibrant colors, painting farewells to the departing night. The first faint tremors shook the frozen ground, a subtle vibration that hinted at the power stirring beneath the ice. Then, as if awakened by an unseen call, the spirals across the world began to glow. Its presence was overwhelming, its knowledge a tidal wave threatening to drown them. Before they could be consumed, the visitor stepped forward, extending a hand to steady them. "It is ready," the visitor whispered, their eyes shining with anticipation and a hint of urgency. He witnessed rituals under star-filled skies, the harmonious dance of people and nature. He felt the vibrant pulse of a world in balance, a world that existed before the great forgetting. The hum grew louder, enveloping them as the codex unfolded before them, revealing the tapestry of their world's history and the destiny that awaited them. Humanity listened not with ears, but with something buried deeper. Anna closed her eyes. The codex unfolded not as text, but sensation. She felt history pass through her, civilizations that dreamed in frequency, ancestors who built monuments from thought, lives that once danced with stars. Nadia wept quietly, not from pain, but release. This is what my people feared and longed for. The day remembering would rise from silence. They were about to embark on a perilous adventure, one that would test their strength, their courage, and the very essence of their being. The fate of their world, perhaps even the universe, hung in the balance. But amidst these glorious visions, he also saw darkness. The chilling grip of fear, the agonizing struggle for survival. He experienced the despair of losing one's connection to the world, and the crushing weight of living in perpetual darkness. No devices, no maps, only the thrum in his chest, a heartbeat that no longer felt like his own. The visitor and the keepers formed a ring around the final spiral. Light gathered above them in a tethered storm of memory and color. The codex had finished compiling. There is one last step, the visitor said. You must choose. Constantine whispered. Choose what? To carry memory forward or to return to sleep? Anna touched his shoulder. This world can't go back. Not after this. Constantine looked around. At Nadia, Anna, the spirals glowing like ancient lanterns across the earth, and the keepers holding still as living statues, he stepped into the spiral. I choose to remember. The spiral accepted him. Light surrounded them all, and in that moment, humanity changed. Not overnight, not loudly, but subtly, dreams became shared. Language evolved in cadence. Empathy stretched farther than fear. Knowledge surged not just in technology, but in spirit. And in some quiet part of the world, where trees still bowed to light and stars whispered through wind, the spirals remained. Not as tools, but as reminders. We were more, and we chose to become it again. It awaits your touch. Hesitantly, Constantine reached out, his fingers trembling slightly as they brushed against the shimmering field. A jolt of energy surged through him, causing him to stumble back. Memories, images, and emotions flooded his mind, overwhelming him with their intensity. At first, faint pinpoints of light, then intensifying into brilliant beacons. Each spiral becoming a luminous testament to the enduring spirit of humanity. You carry the legacy of dreamers within you. The Codex will show you. But it is your choice how to receive it. As the visions receded, he turned to Nadia, her face pale but resolute. It is beautiful, she whispered, her voice filled with wonder and awe. And terrible. We are meant to remember, Constantine said, his voice hoarse with emotion. For ourselves, for our world, for the dreamers. Suddenly, the hum from earlier intensified, vibrating through the cavern. The Codex pulsed, its light shifting. No longer a passive repository, but an active guide. But Nadia also saw the fear lurking beneath the surface. The fear of failure, of letting down generations past and future. And still, Constantine remained lost in the vastness of the white world, his face stoic, unreadable. This is the way, one of them said, their voice echoing with reverence. The path to reawakening, hand in hand, Constantine and Nadia stepped into the cavern. Within, the temperature shifted, the biting cold giving way to a more temperate embrace. The air hummed with energy, alive with the promise of transformation. We can't do everything, she said softly, her voice a quiet strength against the vast backdrop of the frozen world. But we can do this, for our people, for our world, for the dreamers who walked before us. As they moved, the spirals responded, their light pulsing in unison, guiding them deeper into the heart of the ice sheet. Emerging from between the towering ice formations, they found themselves at the edge of a vast cavern, its entrance concealed by centuries of snow and ice. From within, a soft, steady hum resonated, a sound that vibrated in their bones, resonating with the ancient rhythm of their world. Her words, simple yet profound, echoed the wisdom of their ancestors. The dreamers, those ancient souls who had dared to reach for the stars, leaving behind legacies of knowledge and hope, their whispers echoed through time, urging them forward. Nadia knew he was wrestling with the choice laid upon them by the visitor, a choice that went beyond their small community, beyond their world, a choice that echoed across time. It had been 3 days since the arrival of the visitors, 3 days of revelations, fears, and hopes. The elders had confirmed it. This was the moment they had foreseen in their visions, the day of remembering. On that day, the machines would fall silent. The cities emptied and the world held its breath. It had started subtly, machines stuttering, lights flickering, then falling into stillness. Their task, monumental, their responsibility, overwhelming, yet they had to make a decision. Would they accept this burden, or would they let it fall on others? Would they step into the light of remembrance, or would they turn away, choosing oblivion? For Constantine, the decision was agonizing. He loved his world, flawed and beautiful, fragile and resilient. To abandon it, even for a greater purpose, felt like betrayal. Cities had emptied as if by unseen hands. Even the wind seemed to have hushed their song. In the eerie quiet, the pulse of the earth vibrated beneath their feet, a primal rhythm that resonated deep within their bones. That was when the visitor had spoken, revealing their true purpose, the sleepers, the keepers, and the dream of a world that remembered. They were the keepers, chosen and prepared to guide humanity through the awakening, the process of rediscovering their ancient heritage, their connection to the earth and the cosmos. Beside him, Nadia stirred, her presence anchoring him to the present. She placed a hand on his arm, her touch grounding him. And so they stood together, united in purpose, ready to face whatever lay ahead. Their lights drew the keepers together, forming a procession that snaked through the white expanse, winding between the frozen sentinels that guarded their path. At the cavern's mouth, the visitors paused, their forms silhouetted against the swirling light. As their eyes adjusted to the dim glow, they saw it stretching before them. The Codex, a vast repository of knowledge, history, and memories, contained within a shimmering field of light. "It is much," the visitor said, sensing their awe. "But you are more than you think," Nadia gasped, clutching Constantine's hand. He saw vast cities bathed in sunlight, bustling with life and activity. Yet through it all, he saw hope, the unwavering resilience of the human spirit, the courage to keep dreaming even in the darkest of times, and the enduring bonds of love and community. With newfound resolve, they stepped forward, ready to embrace the journey of reawakening. As the final spiral reached full luminosity, a chorus of vibrations echoed through air, stone, and memory. Machines stalled, cities stood silent. Constantine stood at the center of it all. And this is the end of our story.